Good morning, YouTube viewers and subscribers. Today's video I'm going to demonstrate how to time a Saito twin-cylinder odd-fire engine. But before I get to that, let me give a shout out to my buddy and bearing man Brant, who is an eBay seller, whose seller ID is right here, for providing me with bearings for this engine in a timely manner and excellent quality bearings. So anytime you need bearings for your RC engine, I highly recommend calling on Brant to provide those for you. So as I said, this is going to be the timing procedure for Saito odd fire or uneven fire engines. Those engines consist of the 80T, 90T, 100T, 130T, which is what this is, and the 182T. Those are the odd fire Saito engines. Now all I'm really going to be doing is showing a visual demonstration of what's shown in the old Saito manuals for these twin-cylinder engines. And when I say the old manual, what I'm talking about is the paperwork that looks like this, that actually has a diagram that I'll put on here that shows how to time these things, not these manuals that look like a booklet. These never did show that information. So, and the only other difference is that in the Saito manuals, they always reference the engine from the front, but that isn't how I disassemble, reassemble my Saito twin-cylinder engines. I always reference it from behind. So in their instructions, when they say right, I'm actually talking about what I call the left cylinder. So I've got all the things necessary here to perform this task. Let me first talk to you about Saito timing gears. Now every Saito engine, the timing gear has a dot on here. It's a timing mark. This timing mark on single-cylinder engines is always the reference point for inserting the tool into the intake manifold camshaft hole here. And the tool that I always use is just a small screwdriver it's a Phillips head screwdriver that's got a nice tapered point to it. Now the reason I use this as opposed to making the Saito tool that's referenced in some of their very old documentation is it's easy, it's readily available, I have it, and it fits inside this camshaft or this tappet opening perfectly. So normally what you'll see is a hole here, and that's where your timing tool engages to hold this in place as you set this on the engine. But on the twin-cylinder odd fire engines, you have this timing dot which is unused on this portion, on this cylinder, and it's referenced, they've stamped in another, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not, scribe mark. That's actually the timing mark for what I'm calling the left cylinder engine. So the process here will be, I always oil these things up and put my gasket on so it kind of has some surface tension and it sticks to it. Insert your timing tool and rotate until you feel the tool drop into that hole and hold it in place. Now your timing gear is held in place. The next step in the process, let me set this down for a second, is I'm timing this cylinder first, which for me is the left cylinder, and that's the cylinder that fires first, so that's why it gets timed first, is to put your crank pin at top dead center. So I wanted to put my collet on here, my tapered collet and drive hub on here and just tighten it down so that then I could put like a mark on there for my Sharpie to mark where top dead center is for each of these sides, but it wouldn't stick on there. So I'm going to have to do it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hold this in place like this, and I'll show you how this is still an acceptable means to do it. So I've got my gasket on here, I've got my timing gear, I'm holding it firmly so it can't move. I'm holding this at top dead center, and I simply just set this on there. Now I'm still holding it in place, and I haven't put a screw in there because I want to show you that this is fine. So you can see here I can't move this crankshaft anymore, and it is at top dead center. What you're seeing here, this wiggle, is actually just the pitch of the teeth meshing with the crankshaft, the splines that are cutting the crankshaft and the teeth here. That's the only reason you're seeing that wiggle, and that's perfectly acceptable, as long as that wiggle is right at the top dead center mark. So now I can just start kind of running some screws in here to hold this in place. Throw my other 2 screws in real quick, not real tight, just enough to hold this all in place, because we're going to verify this. Okay, so they're all run down. Now I'm just going to spin this, put my tool in here, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see it actually drop into place or not, but there, it just dropped into place, and you can see crank pin is at top dead center. So this cylinder is timed, and I can secure those screws. So now to time the second cylinder, process is exactly the same. I'm going to go ahead and put a little oil here. I don't need that in there. Put a little oil here in these holes on the face, mating face. Now, since this is a 130, this particular one had this air pump on here, which is attached to the camshaft or the timing housing. So I've determined when I disassemble the engine that I have to put this back on now. So that's not a big deal. It's not really affecting the timing process, but it's just a process I need to do. So I'm just simply going to screw this in place, tighten it down, and get my other gasket installed here. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's find our mark. So we're still setting our timing for this side. Now what I want to do is I want to just lift this out and rotate this as the prop would rotate 180 degrees. So now we're just going to basically do the exact same thing, same process for this side. Now, I earlier said that you always insert this tool in the intake side of the cam. Well, on a twin cylinder odd fire engine, the left cylinder, what's normally the intake side on a single cylinder, is actually the exhaust side on the twin cylinder. Doesn't matter, you still stick it in this hole. Now I don't have either of my tappets in there, which is not a big deal. I can just drop them in after the fact. So with this housing, I'm going to stick it in the intake side. Which is always this side here. And this side, we are actually going to put, it is actually going to be lined up with that timing dot. So there, I've got that in place. Top dead center and place, put in place. So again, we'll see here, top dead center, and there we go. So now I can start dropping in some screws here. Okay, so I've got all the screws loosely in there. Now let's check this one more time on the right cylinder. Top dead center. Let's rotate it around. It's really oily here. Check this cylinder. Let's rotate it until that pin drops in. Okay, it's in place here. Rotate it 180 degrees. And we should be in the detent here. So this engine is now timed and ready for me to finish setting those screws in place.